Okay, and welcome back, students taking Math for Business and Finance and Math Applications. And we're doing the last video here for the Chapter 11 Summary Practice Test. And we're working on problem 5 and then number 6. So number 5 says the owner of lease.com signed a $60,000 note at Reese Bank. Reese charges a 7.25% discount rate. If the loan is for 210 days, find the proceeds and then find the effective rate charged by the bank, rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay, so remember, interest is equal to face value times rate times time. Maturity value is equal to face value plus interest. Okay, so if we have a $60,000 note, we have to find the interest in order to be able to discount it. So that's 60,000 times the 7.25, 0.0725 is the decimal equivalent of 7.25% for 210 days over 360. So 60,000 times 0.0725 times 210, and what you get, you divide by 360 to give you your interest, which is $2,537.50. And so remember, that's the discount amount. So we have to take the 60,000 and subtract the 2,537.50 in order to get the proceeds, okay, which ends up being $57,462.50. Okay, so those are the proceeds. Remember, for proceeds, we're taking that face value and we're subtracting out the discount amount. Okay, so we have those as proceeds. Now, that was A. And for B, we want to know the effective rate. Okay, so remember, we're talking about rate here in the formula. Okay? So if we want to find the rate, we set the numerator, we put in the numerator the interest, and so that takes care of the rate and the interest. So we're left over with the face value times the time. Okay, so let's see, the interest was 2537.50, and in the denominator we put the proceeds, okay, 57,462.50 times the time, which was the same 210 over 360. Okay, so now the thing here is that we have to do all of the math here in the denominator first because we have a fraction there. So if you take the 57,462.50 and you times it by 210, that gives you the numerator in the fraction. Then you divide by the denominator of 360, you end up with 33,519.79, and we still have the 2537 interest in the numerator. So we divide the 2537.50, we divide that by 33,519.79, and we get as a decimal 0.0757. Okay, so if we have 0.0757 and we want to know to the nearest tenth of a percent, move the decimal place over 2 to the right to convert from a decimal to a percentage. So we have 7.57%, and we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So there's our tenth. 7 is greater than 5, so we round up, and we get an answer of 7.6% as the effective rate. Same as all of the other problems, nothing much different. Okay, in the last problem here, It says Sam Slater buys a $10,000 13-week Treasury bill at 5.5. Okay, so that should be 5.5%. Okay, just the way I typed it. Terrible typing. All right, so what is the effective rate? Round to the nearest hundredth of a percent. Okay, so again, interest is equal to face value times rate times time. Okay, and if we want to know what the rate is, interest goes in the numerator and face value times the time in the denominator, but we don't know what the interest is right now. I mean, we have the face value of 10,000 and we know it's 13 weeks is the time, but we don't have an interest here. We know the rate's at 5.5%, no interest. So we have to calculate the interest. So I have 10,000 times 0.055, that's 5.5% interest. And it's for 13 weeks. Okay, so remember this here is weeks. And how many weeks are in a year? 52. So you have to put it over 52. All right. We're not using 360 because that's days. All right. We're looking at the number of weeks. So we keep the time frame the same, 52. Right. So now when we do the math, 10,000 times 0.055 times 13, and then we divide all of that by 52, we end up with 137.50 as our interest. Okay. Now we can figure out the effective rate here. Okay, so if our rate is equal to our interest of 137.50 and our face value is 10,000. Oops, I'm sorry. Sometimes make a mistake. Okay, got to think about it. It's a treasury bill. Okay, so on treasury bills, they get discounted by the interest amount. So we have 10,000 less the 137.50, and that gives us 9,862.50. Okay, so that's our face value of 9,862.50 times again the 13 weeks over 52. And of course we have to do what's in the denominator first. So in the numerator we keep the 137.50 and we do the math in the denominator. So 9,862.50 times 13, and then divide that by 52, and in the denominator you have 2,465.63. Actually it's 625. Okay. So 625. So we divide 137.50 divided by 2,465.625, and we end up with 0.0557. That's a decimal. We're converting it into a percentage, so we move the decimal place 2 to the right, and we end up with 5.576. And the question says to the nearest hundredth of a percent. That's why I kept the additional 6, because this is the 10 spot, this is the 100th spot, and 6 is greater than 5, so we round up. We end up with 5.58%. Okay, so that's a percentage there. So the effective rate is 5.58%. And this just goes to point to the fact that the normal interest rate is 5.5, but when you discount it, okay, you get a greater effective rate, which is 5.58. We get an additional 0.08 of a percent in interest rate. Okay, Enough with that. It's been basically the same repetitive thing from question to question to question, but it's all just follow the steps. Just make sure you're looking for any of the idiosyncrasies. Like in this particular case, we're talking about weeks versus days. Okay, it's not unusual to you can see quarters. All right, you could see semi-annually. And semi-annually is going to be a big thing in the next chapter, but that's the next chapter. So yeah, even though this is pretty much step by step, and it seems to be very, very repetitive, when you're looking at the problems, make sure you're understanding what the variables are getting at, and what terms you should be using. Okay. So as always, if you have any additional questions, or you don't understand something after you've watched the videos a few times and tried to figure it out, if you still don't understand something, feel free to telephone and speak with an instructor, or give us, contact us via email. All right. All right. And I will now see you in the next chapter. All right. Chapter 12.